Nasser is a remarkable character. He has been on 100 Huntley Street before. A lot of you have heard him on the show, or you have heard him speak somewhere. He's very well known in North America and other parts of the world. What you maybe haven't learned yet is that he's got a book out. It just came out a week ago. It's called Jumping Through Fires, the gripping story of one man's escape from revolution to redemption. And without ever intending to, David, you are extremely relevant because you're from Iran. Suddenly, Iran is in the news. Everybody's talking about Iran. It seems that from one week to the next, there's something else coming out of Iran. How long ago was it that you left?
Well, we left in 1979, Jim, when the Iranian Revolution happened.
You were just a kid.
I was just a 9-year-old little boy. Yeah. And to me, a 9-year-old little boy's world is filled with school and toys and hanging out and playing soccer out in the field every day. And then all of a sudden, my world completely gets turned upside down because my life is filled with threats to have my father killed and people coming to our house to drag my father away.
This is because he was in the military, he was a pilot, and he was a Shah loyalist.
He was. He was one of the highest ranking military officers in the Shah's regime. And so when the Iranian Revolution happened and the government was overthrown and the military was overthrown, my father's life was in a lot of danger because he was one of the guys that they wanted, out of the way. And in that moment, the way they would get rid of somebody wasn't necessarily just firing them or demoting them, but really killing them. Yeah. And so there were a lot of our friends who were disappearing. There were a lot of people that we knew, that we did life with there in the army base in Iran that we lived in, who were being, killed with firing squads. And some of them actually were being taken to parks and tied to trees and picked apart with pieces of pliers just to be made an example of. And so you're a 9-year-old little boy, imagine, and you're hearing these stories. And some of them are even being taken to a whole other, and they're kind of becoming folklore. People are just telling stories, and you know that any minute now they're going to come and get your dad, and that same thing's going to probably happen to him.
Was it the moment at the school with the soldier and the gun that really was the kicker for your dad? Was that the point when he decided we got to get out of here?
Yeah, I think so,
Tell us
Jim.
about that. That's a kind of a very gripping story.
Sure. Well, we were in a military community. My father was high ranked in the military, and so we lived in the army base. And there was a military school from elementary till senior high there in the army base. And so when the revolution was really at its highest embroiled moment, there was a day where they had a school assembly, and the entire school was there. There were about 1,000 students and teachers, and they called my name and my sister's name and one other person's name out, and they said, "Come to the front of the school." And so we came and stood in front of our entire school, and a soldier came, took out a gun, and put it at my forehead, and with his hands shaking, he looked more scared than me. Be scared of somebody who looks more scared than you with a gun in their hand. Yeah. And he said something about wanting to end my life.
Was he going to do it right there in front of everybody?
Yeah, I think it was a declaration of love for his God, for him. It was a means to say, I'm willing to do these things because terrorism, fear is the #1 ingredient of terrorism.
When you said that in your book, I'm thinking, and see, I've lived in the Middle East. I pastored in Jerusalem for 7 years, and I've had a lot of exposure to a certain kind of mentality. I still do not understand how someone can see an act of terror as an act of devotion. How does that work? Do you understand it?
I don't, because honestly, as a 9-year-old boy, it had the exact opposite effect for me. If that act was supposed to draw me to God, it sure wasn't effective. Because when someone puts a gun at your head, or when someone drags your father out of your house under the name of God, it did nothing but make me, as a 9-year-old boy, decide I hate God. My first introduction to God and people singing songs about God, which we call in the church worship songs, but they were singing, Muslim chants and Muslim songs to God, were people that were celebrating religion, celebrating God by destroying people's lives, including ours. And so I was 9 years old. Not a lot of 9-year-olds have this thought, but I was 9 years old when I decided I hate God. If these are the people that represent Him, I don't want to have anything to do with Him.
No, absolutely. I fully understand that. Now, did this guy lose face when this female teacher intervened?
Yeah,
I wonder, did he slink away to his army base afterwards and not want to talk to anybody? I mean, in the Iranian culture, this would have been a huge face loss experience for him, right?
Sure, and I think you're right. I think in some ways it's tough because it's a woman standing in front of him.
This was what, the principal?
The principal of the school
said, you can't do this, not here?
That's right. So the guy's got the gun and in front of me, and he's telling me he's about to end my life. And the next thing you know, the school principal gets between me and the gun and says, you know, don't do this, come back another time. And I think maybe, I honestly, looking back on it, would like to think that the soldier had kids of his own at home. And maybe he was just looking for something to tip him over to not do it. And so he put his gun away and he said he's coming back another day. I don't know exactly why he didn't kill me that day, outside of looking, in hindsight, realizing that God had a bigger plan. And so I went home that afternoon and I told my dad what had happened. And my father, I've seen him cry 2 times my whole life, and that was the first. And he said, son, they're coming back for you, but when they come back for you later, you're not going to be there because we're escaping. And he told me that as a family, we were escaping from Iran. But I know that my father wasn't escaping to save his life. He would have rather stayed and been a martyr for his convictions, but he was escaping to get his family out of Iran.
Now, our viewers are going to have to read the book because there's terrific detail there about that whole escape process and how you did it. A lot of subterfuge, a lot of scary moments. It's a remarkable story. But let's jump ahead. Suddenly, you're refugees in the U.S. of A. You're in Texas. Or no, was it Texas was the first state, right?
That's
Texas,
right.
yeah. And again, you're attached to a military base, or you're close to a military base, because that's where your father felt comfort, and he'd been there in his training, right, in that area?
He had.
Yeah.
So, you know, obviously we were successful in escaping from Iran, and we, after 9 months, and it is a big ordeal. I mean, I think if people read the story in the book, it'd be a page turner for them just to see how we finally made it to America. But we come here as refugees. We come under political asylum.